And we are joined by your 2022 Speed Chess Champion, Hikaru Nakamura. 5 times in a row must feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this was a crazy match. Obviously, Magnus was definitely out of sorts in the 5+1. I jumped out to this big lead, but to his credit, Magnus always kept fighting back. I mean, it was insane. I mean, there were probably 2 or 3 times in the bullet that I thought finally the match was over, and he found a way to keep it complicated. And yeah, it was just a great match. Fortunately, I came out on top, but I think the fans enjoyed it, and that's what matters most.
Hikaru, is there a unique particular kind of euphoria that stems specifically from beating Magnus?
Well, I mean, I think to beat Magnus in a match means a lot more than a one-off game. Obviously, it goes without saying. But I think, when I look back, there was this 2020 final against Magnus in the Chess 24 event, the Meltwater, or I think it was Chess Champions Tour at the time, where we played best of 7 matches. And I would say that was probably the best that I've ever played. And unfortunately, I had this heartbreaker. I won the first Blitz game, lost the second one, then I couldn't win the Armageddon game. And I think after that, like it's hard to know whether it's possible to beat Magnus. But I think today I came up with a strategy. I got out to a lead, which of course helped a lot. And then I know a lot of people don't like the idea of stalling or using time, but again, it's a match. And honestly, there was this match I played against Magnus in 2017, I think it was, or maybe 18. There was one of the ones where I actually played it from Florida. Maybe it was the first one in like 16 or 17, whatever it was, the one when I was not in South Africa. And I remember in that match that I think it was relatively close. It was maybe a couple of games going, maybe it was like 2 or 3 that I was down going to the bullet, and then I start off the bullet poorly, and of course Magnus ran away with the match. And so in this match, my main strategy was try to keep it as close as possible going into the bullet. And I mean, there were a couple of games where I kind of messed it up in the 3+1, like this one game in the French where I pretty much had to use the restroom really badly. So I was just like blitzing every move when I sacked on F7 and took the pawn on E6. I mean, if I had more time, maybe I win that game, but it's of course things played out the way they did. So yeah, I mean, it's you try to play as well as you can. You try to use the clock to your advantage. Magnus obviously very formidable competitor, and it's wild that I won, but I kept it together.
Yeah, you were just talking about your match strategy, Hikaru. You kept repeating this line that traded off all the pieces in the Marshall. What was your mindset with that line? Because I think all of those games ended in a draw. Were you okay just settling for the half point as long as the games took a long time, bled the match clock, and you were able to keep your lead?
Well, I mean, the first thing is I didn't prepare this line. I had another line that I thought I might play if Magnus played the Marshall, but then, of course, as everybody knows, I had this famous game in 2005 in the Isle of Man against Catronius, where I played the Marshall with black. I mean, I think I played F5 Bishop F4. I don't remember if I played F5 Bishop F4, and I didn't know to play Bishop F3. I lost the game afterwards. I think it was Catronius or maybe it was Aroni, one of the two. They came over and told me like, oh, you take on F4, go Bishop F3. It's just an easy draw. And then I think in 2008 I played it against Levon himself in Gibraltar. Maybe I have the year wrong. And at any rate, I just figured with the lead, there was no reason not to do this. Again, if Magnus is, I feel like you have to try and use every advantage you can have against Magnus. And he's being very, very solid. And if I start playing creatively, I mean, why do I want to take the risk? I'm up by 2, 3, 4 games at various times. And it's just a way to bleed the clock out. And I think strategically it makes sense. Obviously for the fans, I mean, it sucks because, I mean, you just see like 10 games in a row where basically I just run out like 3 or 4 minutes and we end up drawing. But it's what it is. And then Magnus tried to get a little bit creative, and I wasn't able to punish him, but it was still, the onus was still on him because he was down after the 5+1. So I mean, it was wild, but I think I did just about everything right. Other than maybe there were 2 games in the 3+1, the game which I should have won right before the break where I sacked on F7. And maybe it was the next game that I lost, or maybe it was the game before. There was one of these games where we played this A3, and I took on E4 with the pawn as though I thought it was a QGD Lasker, and then it wasn't a Lasker. I mean, it was a little bit different, and Magnus played great, and I lost that game. Those 2 games in 3+1, I think if I had kind of not messed up those 2 games, maybe I could have won more cleanly. But, it's Magnus, and he's going to create chances no matter what you do. So it was it was wild. But at the end of the day, I won, so I'm obviously very happy.
Hikaru, I have a more general question about your approach and your record against Magnus. When you first started playing him, you were riding a pretty bad streak, and then right around COVID, you really turned things around. You started beating him really consistently in those rapid tournaments, and now, of course, an SEC victory. Was there something specific that changed in your approach against Magnus, or would you say it was more coincidental? Did you do something consciously to alter your attitude when you're playing him?
No, I don't think I changed anything in terms of my approach necessarily, but one thing kind of happened at that time, which is I kind of became a streamer and I basically stopped playing chess. And I think that shifted my whole mindset to where it doesn't matter. I don't have these thoughts anymore where like, okay, if I beat Magnus, fine. If I lose to Magnus, fine. Like, it doesn't really change anything in my life at this point. I think the fact that I don't have to worry about the pressure, there isn't the stress there of like, oh my God, if I lose to Magnus, it's the end of the world. That helps a lot, because I think for a lot of players who are professionals, certainly when they play against Magnus, anytime you lose, everyone obviously is going to be like, haha, you lost against Magnus, you all suck. That's pretty standard. Doesn't matter whether it's me, doesn't matter whether it's Fabiano, whomever it is. But I think for me, the fact that it's not the main focus, the fact that I can sort of just relax, and if I lose these matches or I lose these games, it doesn't change anything. Has made me play better. And I would just say that I'm very, very proud of my performances. The Grand Prix and the candidates, I mean, even this, it's all kind of gravy. If COVID had stopped and I had played terribly, lost 30, 40 points in classical and gone to 2,700, it still would have been a great career. But to have all these events where I've been playing so well, it means a lot. So I'm very happy.
Yeah, the other day you sounded and told us that you were exhausted. Sounds like you might be rejuvenated. So do you feel like this fires you up for the upcoming World Rapid and Blitz?
No, I mean, I think the thing is I'm playing Magnus. I mean, if you can't get excited by playing Magnus, then why are you even playing chess? I mean, he's the best player in the world. He's the world champion. If you can't be excited, then like there's something wrong with you. So, I mean, I think right now at least it's just adrenaline, just kind of like just having won the match. Certainly, it feels amazing. But yeah, I think going to the World Rapid and Blitz, obviously, I'll probably play Magnus again, and we'll see how it goes. He always has been someone who comes back from defeats very strongly, so it's going to be exciting. Looking forward to it.
Before we let you go, Hikaru, we got a couple of feature chat questions. I'm going to package two of them in one. The easy one is question for Hikaru, asks Shiba, what's the mystic drink you're using? And then the second question is, how did you avoid tilt? Question from Silva1988. When Magnus managed to tie it up in the bullet. Does that have to do with what you mentioned about putting less pressure on yourself overall?
Yeah, so in terms of the first question, I mean, I was drinking the classic Dunkin' iced coffee. That's what I drank for the 5+1 portion. Then on the break, the Keurig machine stopped working, so I had to make my instant coffee for the 3+1. So that's what I was drinking. I had a little bit of kombucha as well. That's what I was doing in terms of drinks. And yeah, as far as tilt, I think the the thing is, it was very hard because I think I was up by 1, and then I lost this horrible game in the Marshall where Magnus played this Bishop G6 stuff, and I was completely winning, up 30 seconds, and then I completely messed it up, and then the match was even. I think the main thing for me, and this is not even so much about today, but just in general, is sort of I have this ability now to where I don't care. I'm just able to get over it, and you just move on to the next game and keep going. In the past, I would have folded like a cheap suit there. I would have probably lost the next 3 or 4 games, lost the match, and I would be saying, okay, well, Magnus, like, Hikaru, he chokes again. Magnus in his head all the time, all this nonsense. So at any rate, I think it's mainly just, when I look at the performance I've had in all the tournaments this year after critical loss, like I look at the Grand Prix, I lost to Levon in the first game. Third Grand Prix, I came back, and then I beat him in the 5th game, and I won the last game as well. You look at the candidates, I lost to Fabi in round 1, then I beat Timur round 2. I lost to somebody later, and then I beat Fabiano, I think. So I've just been able to bounce back because I think it's just there's no pressure. It's very easy when you have no pressure in chess. There's if I do badly, I do badly. I'm still a streamer. Who cares? I do well, that's great too, but it doesn't matter.
Well, that makes perfect sense, Hikaru, and you have stated that before. And a related question from Carry Chess is, do you feel a greater sense of confidence against Magnus now than ever before?
I mean, I don't think it. Well, okay, I'll tell you guys a story. So this is one of the things I was thinking about before the match. Now, some years back, Mr. Danny Wrench, the chief chess officer over at chess.com, he said that according to the chess.com stats, apparently when I play Blitz, I'm more accurate than Magnus, except when I play Magnus and I play like a complete clownfish. So that was in my mind, that basically if if I'm able to just keep it together and not lose my mind, good things can happen. But in general, I think it's really just that I try to play good chess, and I think everybody else is under pressure, and I have nothing to lose, and that makes a world of difference. For Magnus, for example, I mean, there's definitely pressure. He has an incredible score against me in classical chess. I mean, over the years, just in every format, frankly. So the pressure's on him. I mean, there's no pressure on me. If I lose, I lose. Big deal. But I know it's like very sort of psychological and stuff that a lot of people probably won't understand. But certainly when you don't have to worry about the result, it changes a lot. And I don't think that I can state that enough. I think actually, to use another example, I'll look at Fabiano. He started doing this podcast, doing some other stuff. He goes, plays the US Championship, wins it. And so there might be something to be said that when you're not like completely hardened and that's all you're doing, that things can become better.
Hikaru, based on what you just said, I have a follow-up question. Do you believe that if you didn't know who your opponent was, like if people didn't know Magnus was the opponent, that they would play better against him based on kind of
absolutely. I mean, absolutely. That's without a doubt, that's true. But I think the thing is, chess is obviously a mental game or a mental sport versus, say, a physical sport. But I use this analogy very oftentimes, and it's like if you look at, say, tennis, for example, because it's a sport that I played, or I took lessons for many years. If you look at tennis, is there any actual difference between the best players and number 100 in the world? No, I mean, they can all hit the same shot. So what is it that really makes those top couple of guys really good? A lot of it is just like the mental aspect, knowing sort of what to do in those critical moments. And the same thing is true in chess. Like, I don't think you can say that anybody in the top 10 can't beat Magnus on a good day. But the fact that you're playing Magnus, the world champion, he has that, everyone knows how good he is at defending, playing end games, openings. I mean, just everything, put it simply. He's just astounding. So, I think certainly everybody would do better if they didn't know they were playing Magnus.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of Magnus, I got one final question for you, and I don't even really have to ask it. I can just say one move, Bishop C7. Your thoughts on that blunder, and how infrequently do you see something like that for Magnus? How shocked were you to see that move?
I mean, I was definitely surprised. It seemed like Magnus was definitely out of sorts, or maybe he just wasn't there. I think for me, the moment that I knew that I was going to have chances was probably the second game when I played the King's Indian, and Magnus did not put me away in that game. He was up a pawn. It was a very typical Magnus kind of position with the great knight on f5. And in the time scramble, he was very shaky, and the game ended in a draw. And I think from that time on, I felt good about my chances because it was just very uncharacteristic for Magnus to not be precise there. So that was when I had sensed that something might happen. But of course, Magnus kept fighting to the end, and a lot of credit to him. Because there were a couple times when he also could have just fallen apart, but he kept it together. And yeah, I think all the fans enjoyed it. And I guess that's the 5th year in a row that I've won it, which is nice.
Definitely nice, Hikaru. And I just have one last question. You just used the word sensing things. It seemed to me like you were looking at